Hello, it's me, Jess. Welcome to my channel. I'm here with another channeled message. This is a specific message. It might resonate with you, it might not. All right, so heads up with this. I feel like for some, this message is meant to call you out pretty directly and to confront you with the weight and reality of your own, it feels like bad, selfish, strategic, negligent, backstabbing, betraying behavior here. And whatever this behavior is or was, it pretty successfully actually masquerades itself as being better than what it actually is. And it does that internally and also externally. So what that tells me is there's some type of story here that primarily I think you tell yourself in your own mind, over and over again in this kind of like loop-like fashion. And also I think you tell this story externally whenever like you're prompted or like whenever you have to. I think you probably keep this like, at a minimum, but I do think there's some version of this that you do say to other people. But this story, whatever it is, I'm seeing somebody sucking their thumb. It's like comfort food for your brain, and it's not real. This story does not reflect reality. It's not what actually happened, but it's what you tell yourself happened in this situation. And I feel like there is some level of ego defense mechanism at play here, which we talk a lot about ego defense mechanisms, and they're exactly what they sound like. They're strategies that the brain has to preserve and protect your own ego. And that's internally, but also externally. And ego is your position and your beliefs, but it's also like this version of yourself that you kind of consciously claim, okay, well, I'm this kind of a person who does this kind of a thing. And I feel like whatever has gone on here in this situation and whatever behavior you either displayed yourself, colluded with, or kind of like sat by while it was going on in front of you, it's not in alignment with how you see yourself and how you know other people see you. So it's very threatening to your ego internally and that self-perception, and therefore like your mental health and well-being and some kind of equilibrium you have going on the inside. But it's also maybe very threatening externally in terms of how you're seen socially. And so there's this kind of saving face component internally and externally. And the defense mechanisms that I'm picking up on here very strongly is denial and repression. So whatever the story is that you're telling yourself over and over in your mind. And I'm hearing that quote that says, the best lies have some version of truth in it. And it feels like for most of you, this is like mostly truth, where there's conveniently, you've tweaked a little bit of this over here and a little bit of that over there, and you've left this kind of out in your mind. And some of you may not even kind of recognize that you're doing it. Although I do feel that there is this kind of, it feels like very, like you're on high alert and everything's very tensed, and you're kind of trying to distract yourself and make you feel like you didn't know something. And so the ego defense mechanisms that I'm getting here that are active in this story, it's denial, like you're in denial about something, a lot of things, maybe yourself, who you involve with, something here. Denial is present, and repression. So again, certain things happened in this situation that I think maybe you're actually repressing. In order to be able to tell this story a certain way in your mind. And you benefit from telling this story. And I'm bringing that up because I feel for a lot of you that this message is actually a response to a prayer. And I think that for a lot of you, it's your prayer. It could be that it's a response to somebody else's prayer that you've harmed and victimized. And they've been praying that you understand the weight of what you did and the reality. And maybe that's part of it. But I think for most of you, you have prayed about the situation, or I'm also hearing petitioned, which to me, that's like a magical term, right? So like you petition some kind of energy stream or like God or goddess energy to assist you in this situation. And I think that you called on that, like called or asked for that assistance because there's something here about, I'm hearing, why did you leave? And they're actually circling that in my mind. And this feels like direct from this like deity or something here that's actually come in to assist in this situation. Why did you leave? They're circling that because I feel like that's a key component here of unpacking that, is like kind of unpacking this story, because the story here does not adequately answer why somebody here left. Because I think for some of you, if it's this person that was victimized that left, I don't know what your story, like when it leads up to this kind of like climax of what happened, and then it's meant to answer your story. I feel like if you're called upon to tell this story to other people, it's to answer the question, why did this person leave? Why are they not around? Because there's like so much love here, or we love this person so much. Why is this person not around? I feel like the answer to that question is pain. There was maybe a third party situation. Somebody here was heartbroken, or they were betrayed. And not only that, it feels like it was also not addressed or cleared up in a way that somebody was accountable for their actions, and somebody's pain was held and taken seriously and understood. So I don't know what you're telling yourself, how you're making sense of that in the story, but this deity is saying, nope, we've got to be able to address, at least internally for now, and eventually externally, potentially to this person that you want to make things right with. You have to be a person who's able to tell the real story, so that justice can be brought to the situation. The healing that you want can be brought to the situation. It's like you have to be a person who knows how to do that, who can bring the peace, and who can bring the justice, and who can bring the rebalancing that you seek and suck the poison out of this situation. And it has to do with acknowledging that you do have power in this situation, and that power is taking accountability. But you can't take accountability if you're saying a false story to yourself. Because what you're going to do, what it amounts to, whether you're meaning to do it or not, is it's gaslighting. It's gaslighting your victim, which is further victimizing them, because it's minimizing. And so they're not going to bring you around this person to have you minimize and gaslight them. They've been through enough. So justice will be brought to the situation. And that starts with being able to tell the real story. Now, for some of you, I'll say that I think you left. Like you either physically left or you emotionally left this situation. And you have to be able to tell this person why you did that. Because this person is probably going to ask, why? Like there needs to be some kind of accountability. And that's where you trip up, because that's where the ego defense mechanisms kick in, because you don't want to have to admit that you are a certain kind of person, or that you were a certain kind of way in this situation. Well, I was scared, or I was weak, or it's because I got caught, or maybe there's a lot of emotion here, like because I have a lot of emotion for you and I feel like I messed things up and that you were never going to forgive me. And so I just sabotaged, but it feels embarrassing, whatever it is. But it feels like, I just heard humiliation and humility, and they flip those around in my head. So you're thinking about it through the lens of humiliation, but I think it's humility. You have to be able to show humility, where you're able to hold yourself in check, right? And like take accountability. But like I said, that has to do with being able to tell the real story to yourself. So you have to, and that's part of what this message is about too. It's popping the fantasy. And getting you in touch with like the real story here, so that you start telling yourself the real story. And what Spirit is saying here is that had you done that in the immediate aftermath, it would have had a definite effect here. This is not a victimless crime. Telling yourself a story that didn't happen to make yourself feel better, because that's what this story is aiming to do, internally and externally to others. Again, there's benefits that you acquire from doing this, and it's selfish. Okay. And again, like these behaviors, again, there's something here. You're making it seem like it's better than it actually is, but these behaviors are actually just self-serving, and they're strategic, and there's some selfishness here, because like I said, in telling this story, there's benefits that you receive. And part of the benefits is when you tell yourself this story internally, but definitely when you tell this story externally, you're kind of setting it up to make your actions or non-actions in this situation, like before, during, and after, or like in the beginning, middle, and end, right? Seem better than they actually were. To see like, well, what else was I supposed to do? To make it seem like your actions made sense instead of what they actually were, which was a betrayal. It should never have happened. Or so, because you're trying to avoid a follow-up question from anybody who could hold you accountable and be a genuine mirror. And there are people who were brought to you intentionally, and their soul was willing to do that for you. But I feel like you kind of navigated around by telling this like fake version of the story. But it's meant to avoid them saying, well, why didn't you apologize? Or oh my God, like, are they okay? Like, and that's another thing that I think Spirit's wanting to highlight. There's kind of a violence that's perpetuated in this situation, because it feels like somebody here was like betrayed or backstabbed. And then it feels like somebody here didn't take accountability in the immediate aftermath of, I did this to you and I should not have done this to you. And then it also feels like there's this incorrect narration of what's going on. And it feels like internally and externally. So false saying, I don't know. Well, I left because my feelings changed, when that's not the reality, So there's falsities in the way that the story is being told. Again, internally to do with like feelings, or externally like misreading of the story. And what that has done, and I think that you don't quite understand this, is that, and this is why you're being confronted with the weight of your actions, because somebody here was really hurting. And I feel like Spirit was trying to get this person the comfort that they needed, even if that couldn't have come from you, because for some of you, it couldn't have, because you betrayed this person. But I'm hearing, if you had told this story the right way, if you told the truth, or if for some of you, if you had just simply refrained from injecting a lie in order to save face, then I'm hearing there were people, and it sounds to me like there's more than one person here. It's not just one person. There were multiple people who would have gone out of their way to render aid to this person, because they either know something about the way this person is, which is like maybe very sensitive, or like very sensitive around a certain thing or a certain issue. They know something here is a trigger, or they just know that something here is like very painful, and people actually do care about this person. And that's one of the things, they're saying unforgivable. This is kind of one of the things that Spirit is like, because this is the thing that has long-term consequences. Because I'm hearing for some of you to this day, this person does not know that there are people that care about them and that cared about them in this situation, because they were very, very alone. And you made sure that they were alone because in order to save face. But I'm hearing there are people here who would have gone out of their way to send the right text message, the right communication. Because for some of you, I think that you injected a lie here, and it was some type of strategy, and you wanted this person to, I don't know, be invited to some type of event so that you could further enact some type of strategy, anything but just, do right by this person and be vulnerable. Sorry, that's just the way that it's kind of coming through here. So some people did reach out to this person, but it wasn't in the right way. And it made this person feel ganged up on, and it made this person feel handled instead of cared for. And so that's a further violence that's gone on here. So this all needs to get cleaned up. And it starts with telling yourself the right story in your mind. And this has to do with, so they're saying misrepresentation, and they're giving me like, okay, so Dr. K, who is a psychologist, one of the two, here on YouTube, and he's really great and very helpful. And I can't ever remember what this is called, but he was describing for people how there's so much nonverbal communication before we actually like open up and speak to somebody. And I feel for some of you, that's what's being misrepresented here in some way, shape, or form, is like the intangibles of the situation, the nonverbal communication that either you were picking up on and you're saying you didn't pick up on it from this person. Like you could see that they were hurt. But you're playing, somebody here I think is playing dumb. Now, here's where I want to say, because I think for some of you, this is a third party situation, and there's some type of collusion between yourself and another individual. Now, if that is the case, there's some type of collusion here, and it may have been talked about, but it almost doesn't need to be talked about, because your association with this person and some type of closeness that you have with this person, that kind of seems like it's intimacy. And I'm also hearing proximity. You have a proximity to this person. You keep this person around, this person's been your friend. It's easy to keep this person around because there's some type of collusion, and it's based not on love, whatever you might say about it. It's not love. It's not intimacy. It is self-preservation. And you need to be able to say that aloud, that you put on a front here. Oh, well, I'm actually really close to this person. We're friends. Well, you shouldn't be, because either you are a piece of shit. Let me be very clear. Or they are. Somebody here is a real piece of shit, is much more strategic. There's one person here, if this is a third party situation and two of y'all colluded to gang up on this person that's actually a kind person that you actually love. Because that's why you want to clear this up. There's some type of love here, whatever type of love it is, platonic, romantic. There's some you actually love and feel intimacy towards this other person. And I am hearing sabotage or self-sabotage. You could feel like you sabotage yourself because you were scared of the feelings that you had for this person. You knew, or you were confronted with your own selfishness with this third party, and you thought, yeah, I'm going to selfishly collude over there. And that could have been for schmegs. It could have been that, you feel that, I'm hearing from Mean Girls where when Katie first goes to the new school and she meets Damien and Janice Ian, and she was like, well, I'm in no position to turn down friends. So for some of you, it's like you wanted friends. So you betrayed your other friend here, but there's some type of, you were tested here of like your own selfishness. So you did care about this person, but you thought, I'm just going to go be selfish over here. Selfishness and strategy is what Spirit is saying. So what you're missing about this situation, because somebody here thinks, oh man, I was being selfish and I was being secretive and I was being strategic about that, but something here was an accident. I didn't mean for this to come out or to explode in the way that it did. And that person, I don't feel like, I think that person, the thing that their ego is struggling with and lying to themselves about, it's not their overall personality. It's just something about this situation brought out their selfishness and they couldn't confront it. I think they're usually a good person, but they just couldn't confront it, right? Because it brought up their shadow and it scared them, and they are not used to having the shoe on the other foot. They're not used to being seen in this certain light, but they are in fact selfish and they are in fact strategic, and that was active here. But that person, another thing that they can't admit to themselves is the person that they involved with. Wow. That person is very strategic. That person needs to apologize for their personality. Okay, this is not a one-off incident. And this collusion between this pair here, if this is a third-party situation, is built on delusion. Because one of these people here, and again, they were strategic. They were angling to target this other person who was hurt in the situation. That feels like a feminine energy. They were meant to destroy things. They were trying to break somebody's heart here. They were trying to betray. They were trying to backstab. They were trying to wreck somebody's contentment here, or their innocence, or their happiness. They were trying to do that on purpose via colluding with you in this way that's terrible and is a third-party situation and is strategic and is selfish. And I think they preyed on your selfishness. They bet on it in some way. And for some, they preyed on your niceness. Like they knew that you are a nice person, but this feels nice in like a doormat kind of way of you're very, very nice and you're not going to ever put somebody in their place and say, I'm not going to be a part of this. And they preyed upon that in order to get you into a situation that it would be hard for you. Like you knew that you were betraying this person and you knew that it was wrong. And if you're not going to stand up to this person and say, I don't participate in this kind of behavior and I don't hurt my friends, you're in a situation where you can't explain that to yourself, and that's going to harm this other person. It's going to make it look like you chose them over this person and you didn't. This is just all self-preservation. And if you're telling yourself it's love, you're doing it to protect yourself because you don't feel an actual affinity with this other person. You feel an affinity with this person that you hurt. That's what's going on here. And all of this is hard to confront, but it's the real story. And you can start fleshing out the real story here because there is something about those, like the context here. And like story is such a good way to describe this because, you know, a story has a beginning, a middle, and an end. You know, when you're watching a movie or when you're reading a book, it has like the background information, right? It's the setting, it sets the scene, and then it builds up into the climax, into the drama, into the backstabbing, the betrayal, the thing that went wrong, right? And then it kind of comes back down and works its way to the resolution. And I'm telling you, there's something here with the way that you're viewing the background information and like the kind of setting things up where you're intentionally ignoring some type of like nonverbal cues or like nonverbal communication from yourself, from other people, where you're saying like, oh, I misread the situation, or somebody here. And again, I think it's you, no offense. But I feel like they're playing dumb or they're playing coy. And somebody's doing it in order to not be accountable and to say, oh, well, it was just an accident, because they're genuinely not a bad person. But there was something about the situation. Again, it brought out their selfishness because they needed friends or they wanted schmegs, something, right? But the truth is that they saw the writing on the wall. Like, for instance, if this was an affair, this person knew that this quote unquote friend liked them. They absolutely knew. Or that they liked this other person and that they could see that there was some type of strategy here, but maybe they were flattered by it and they didn't want to have to call something out directly. And so they didn't. And so something here just kind of happened, right? And there's something here where they're not acknowledging the lucidity of themselves in this behavior, how lucid they were. So somebody here could have said, oh, I was drunk, or they could have lied and said, you know, because some people like black out when they drink. So they could have said, oh, that person was much more lucid than they actually were. Like there could be something here about the lucidity of everything that's gone on as well. This is like, you don't go to the grocery store hungry. If you can see something here kind of shaping up, if you can see the lay of the land, then you should kind of put your foot down or like stop something here. You should do that, right? So that's one version. But this person who I think was angling to strategize and like ruin something, I think there's also potentially like nuance that they didn't want to own up to seeing. They could see the body language here between two people. And I think they felt heartbroken by that, but didn't want to admit it. And so instead I think this person, I I don't want to get, I'm getting a couple like specifics here, but, okay. So I'm seeing like 2 females and a male, let's say. This isn't everybody's situation. It's just the one that's coming to me, like most strongly. So one of these females, I think, is the target here, and something like they were the one hurt in this situation. And a masculine truly loves this person because either he wants to make a move towards this person, and this body language is seen by this third person, but they're saying that it wasn't. And so something here was just an accident, and I'm not a piece of shit for involving in a situation I didn't know. That is a total lie. Okay. Or they're actually together. He's with this person, their girlfriend and boyfriend, or they live together, or somebody's pregnant, or they're getting married, right? And somebody here is just saying something was an accident, when in fact they could see that this person loves this person, right? There's a lie about the nonverbals and about like knowing who is who and what is what. Now, I will say this, there's something here about whoever the strategic person is, and that could be you to some extent, but I think it's definitely true of whoever the most strategic person is in this situation. There's something about their strategy where they go on the offense through some type of inquiry, which seems like it's more passive, and it seems like it is accidental or more neutral. It doesn't seem like there's an agenda or a strategy behind it, but it's a way that they can, make a statement, right? So, but they do it by asking some kind of question. And this quote unquote friend, because I just feel like there's something here where it's a quote unquote friend. And these people they're not friends. And I've said this a million times in my readings, but, so it could be, and I feel like it's this other female that's like, so either she approached the feminine who got hurt here in order to strike up a friendship with her. But there was a strategy behind that the whole time. It was never done in good faith. She never intended to be a friend, because what is a friend? A friend is somebody that cares about you. A friend is somebody that feels selfless where you are concerned. A friend wants you to achieve your goals and will help you do that. And they want to see you happy, and they want to, they rejoice when you get the things that you want, right? That's not what's going on. This person approached this feminine knowing full well that they were trying to undermine her. There was some kind of strategy to undermine, to cause heartbreak. And I think for a lot of you, it was to get close to a masculine energy here. That was her actual target. And she wanted to usurp this feminine, and it feels like destiny swapping. I think she wanted to get pregnant by this masculine, or like she wanted to be like the girlfriend. And there's an obsession here, but it's not love. It's lust, it's greed, it's an obsession with being seen in a certain way. And they know that they're not the natural choice. And so they have to undermine something here via suggestion and through undermining. And so they could do that through the feminine, right? Through approaching the actual feminine. I'm going to like the divine feminine, let's say. And they can subtly undermine by asking her questions like, oh, well, are you really happy? Does he seem happy? He doesn't really seem happy. You know, so it's that subtle way where they implant some kind of idea. Or this is somebody who's directly approaching the masculine. So this could be somebody that is supposedly this masculine's friend. And I think you have your suspicions about that. That's the other thing. There's another group here. I didn't quite say this in the beginning. There's another group here where this message is not meant to call you out on your own behavior, but you've been really wronged in this situation. You haven't gotten your justice. You were treated badly to begin with. Then nobody took accountability. And so this is confirmation for you, and this is your justice. And I don't think anybody here is like 100% in the dark. You either know for a fact that something here has happened, and you're just watching as these people that you thought were your friends or your loved ones or something just refuse to take care of you. They are not admitting they're not calling it, they're not taking accountability, they're not apologizing, they're not like acknowledging your pain, and you're like, wow, it's like being like backstabbed all over again, and you're like kind of reeling from that. Or you suspect that something here is not what it seems, and you're being gaslit about it. So like I said, if she's approaching this masculine directly, and they're quote unquote friends, no, they're not. Because I feel like there has either been some kind of schmegdual activity here. It could have been like a one night stand, a hookup kind of thing. If it's anything that's gone on longer than that, again, I just feel like they're in delusion with one another. I think it was just schmegdual because he has a divine feminine that he truly loves. And I think that what's going on between these two, again, it's a delusion where she's saying, oh yeah, I'm just a friend. It's meaningless or whatever. All the while she's angling for the destruction of things. And with her, he's saying that this was just an accident or whatever, or that he's in control of something here and that he's not selfish. It was just an accident. He's not selfish. But no, there was a strategy here, and there continues to be a strategy so long as he keeps the secret and doesn't put an end to it. Right? But also she's not his friend either. If she's saying that she's his friend, because she doesn't want him to get what he wants and what would truly make him happy. And she knows it's this other feminine here. She doesn't care about that, and she's actively trying to undermine it. There's something here like that. And there's a lot of different situations that this could be, but that's kind of like the bulk of it. But that's the reality here. You've got to come face to face with what you colluded with, because somebody here is much more strategic than I think is somebody here is capable of admitting to themselves. And I think that's where, again, there's two groups here where I think that somebody here took an active role, or there's something here about, well, I actively pursued that because, and somebody here is like in denial about that. Or they're justifying it. Well, of course I took this kind of action because it was the right thing to do, and then they mistell the story in order to make it seem like that was plausible or that's what they should have done. They conveniently leave out details except for I know that this person didn't have a crush on me and I took advantage of them when they were drunk and I should have actually held up. It's like there's something here. They tell the story in such a way that justifies some type of action here. And there's another person here where they justify their passivity in a situation. And they should not have been passive because something here involves a friend. Either their friend was victimized or their friend was the one doing the victimizing. Either way, they should not have been passive here. And they were much more astute and they knew much more about this situation than they let on. So again, I feel the purpose of this message is to confront somebody here with the reality of their actual behavior that is far more selfish and strategic and betraying and backstabbing and everything that I said at the beginning than they are letting on and that they're owning up to. And they think that's what's best for them, is to not admit that and to say, well, of course, I'm not a selfish person, because I think that's what they fear, is that whoever it is that they've hurt, if they just admit I was a selfish person, I betrayed you behind your back and I tried to get away with it. And I'm scared that if I admit that to you, it's going to be the end for us. Because they know that if somebody did that to them, that it would be the end for them. And so they're not able to own up to that. But that's not actually what's best. And there is pain. It's a very selfish perspective too, because they're just trying to save face. They're like, well, the relationship's going to end anyways. I might as well save face and act like it was an accident. Maybe enough time can go by and I can weasel my way back in or something, but it's not. Actually, there's a lot of pain that continues to go on here because there was the act of the betrayal, whatever it was. And for some, it continued, this kind of collusion. But if these two are still in any kind of proximity or relationship together, whoever colluded, and this includes, I'm talking to you, if you're in some kind of relationship, don't be with this person. You're just doing, it's self-serving and you're doing it to preserve yourself. Like, see, oh, we're friends, or it's just self-preservation. So knock it off. It's just not truth. That's what needs to happen here. You need to have cleaned up your own mess for this person to be back into the situation. And that's the mess. This person, if you genuinely had a lapse in judgment and you see your mistakes, I am telling you, this person that you involved with is a piece of shit, and nothing about your life will be served in any way. In fact, it will be tanked the longer you keep this person around. Don't do it. Don't be the person who brings the predator to the party. You feel me? Don't be the person that rocks up to your relationships with a predator, with a hanger-on. There's some type of justice of like, get away from this person. That's part of their justice. Take accountability, tell the truth. All of this is like very wrapped up together. So I think, again, if you've asked for some kind of assistance in this, this person's not just going to be brought back around and everything's going to be hunky-dory. They'll be brought back around when it's safe. When you've prepared the way, when you know the real story, when you tell yourself the real story, when at the very least you refrain from telling the lie story, just to save a little face, because it has real world consequences for your victim here, where they're, for some of them, they're seen as being culpable in the situation and they were not. So like blamed, oh yeah, that person deserved it. Because for them to see like, it's like a whack-a-mole. For certain people here to take your side of it and say, oh yeah, I understand why you did that. You would have to like defame this other person because they didn't deserve it. And you know they didn't deserve it. But to make your actions seem at all plausible, you have to ensure that this person does not get the support and they're not looked at in the way that they should be looked at. And that, yeah, because I am hearing that if you told the real story from the jump, even if you were not able to offer this person some type of healing and comfort, there are people who would have, at the drop of a hat, gone out of their way to reach out to this person and to check up on them Yeah. During this like time of need. And for some of you, of course it hurt this person. Of course. They're not a sociopath. You shacked up with a sociopath. That's the sociopath. You're like, oh, sociopath, with your lack of feelings and empathy and your cold heart. Are you okay? Do you need my tongue in your mouth? Ugh. Stop doing that. Stop it. Yeah. And I think for some of you, there's some type of inquiry here, like whether or not maybe this person is content or something. But again, on your part, it's like strategic. So we've got to be willing to acquaint ourselves with reality of what's actually going on here. And for some of you, I think that you've played a passive role. Like, okay, this is another example. Some of you, I think maybe you engage in like schmegs work. And like maybe like some of your clients, you're like, whatever, like I just kind of play a passive role here. It's not my relationship. I'm not a cheater. I don't do anything wrong. But like there's either somebody here that you're thinking about, like, or that person is much more strategic, like to their partner. They might be telling you that they're in an open relationship or that their partner knows about it or is cool with it. And they're actually not, because this person is like very strategic and there's something that like weighs on your mind about this particular situation. So anyways, that's another thing that's coming through. But anyways, I'm going to leave that there. Also, one last thing. If you are a part of the group where you were the one victimized, like this is coming through actually to just, you've been gaslit a lot in this situation. You've not gotten your justice. And this is spirit just confirming that what you suspect or what you know to be true is in fact true. You should not have been treated this way. And if people were telling the truth, or at the very least not telling lies, that there are actually people who care about you, first of all. And those people would have actually come to your assistance. They would have called you. They would have drove to you. They would have, there are people here that are definitely willing to do that. And that is such a shame that you didn't know that and that was not allowed to come through for you. But I also feel that obviously you're the one listening to this message, but I think in their real life, whoever, like if you've prayed for this person to understand like the depths of the way that they hurt you and for that to just like be made known, I do feel that that's happening. I feel like just the same way you heard me call out some of these other people here. And I think that was meant to calm you down of like, oh, there's still people that are like willing to just call out the truth and that don't want to just like accept this behavior. I feel like there's somebody in that person's life that is doing the same thing for them. And it could be because they finally opened up about this situation, like maybe in a therapy session or something. Or it might not even have to do with this situation directly, because for some of you, I think this behavior is quite chronic with like at least one of these people here. And so it could have been the same situation, but like whoever they did it to actually called this person out in a way that you would have like approved of. Something that like you wish somebody would have said to this person, like on your behalf. I feel like somebody, just the way that you heard me say it to these people, somebody is doing that. I think in your person's life where they're being confronted with the reality and the gravity and the weight of their behavior. And they are feeling remorse and they are feeling guilty and they wish that they can make things right. And I do think spirit is saying, we're not bringing you back together with this person to quote unquote make things right until you show that you are a person capable and willing of doing that, which means you harbor no sociopath and you are able to admit what you are and what you did. Because if you can't admit it, you can't turn it around. I think this person, there's some type of paradox here, which if you listen to my channel, you know I love a good paradox point. But there's a paradox here where this person thinks they need to appear like, I'm not selfish, you know, and I wasn't intentionally trying to strategize, because to them, that's like the kiss of death. And it is. I mean, that's bad. Nobody wants to be around someone who's intentionally selfish and then tries to hide something here. But there's a paradox point, because actually a person who is selfish but will own up to it and will admit it, that is a person who's remorseful. That's a word this person needs to know. That person is remorseful. That person is genuine. That person maybe did make a mistake. Maybe that person knows better now and is learning, because none of us come out the womb perfect. None of us live a perfect life, right? And I think that you understand that. But this person doesn't understand that it is the safer person. It is a person that you can trust, that owns up to their mistakes. And any question, you know, I'm hearing like Esther Perel, if this was like an affair situation, because she says every couple has to navigate this in their own way. There's some people that want to know all the nitty gritty details, and there's some people that just don't. But whoever did the transgression has to be willing and trusted to any question that their partner genuinely wants an answer to. They have to tell them, no matter how embarrassing or how gross or how bad it makes them look. That's part of the healing process. But this person's withholding that because they're like, my God, once you see who I am and what I really did, you're not going to want to be around me. And even so, that's your choice. And for some, they just thought, oh, well, it's going to shit anyways, so I might as well just like save face. But this is like so guilty. Like this person has a guilty conscience. And I think, again, for some of you, like whoever they involve with, some of you might already know that that person's a piece of shit, like because you already know that person and you were shocked that that this person involved with them to the extent that they did. And in the way that they did, because you know that this other person is not a piece of shit, or at least that's you thought that they weren't. And then I think it cast them into doubt, like having involved with this person. And you're now confused, and you really need this person to show some honesty if they are not like this other person. I also think they're having a really hard time accepting just how strategic somebody was here that they involved with. That's also hard for them to realize because they got played like a fiddle is what I'm getting. This person kind of knew what they were doing. And I think it's scary for them to kind of think that about that other person. But you've had to confront all that stuff. So all of that kind of needs to happen. That is the healing road. There's a lot that needs to go on internally and externally as individuals here, like for this person who kind of perpetrated before the gates back here. Because I think maybe there is a genuine soulmate connection, and I think there is genuine love here, and that's noted by the universe or by whatever deity or by whatever. And so I think the love isn't the problem, because maybe that's what somebody's saying. I love this person so much, like bring them back. Like I'm so earnest, you can see that I'm earnest. It's not about the love. It's about the follow through. It's about the strength. It's about if you have a love, can you protect it? If you have a love, can you sustain it? If you have a love, act like you've got a love. Don't act like this is garbage that you can just toss and shit on and walk all over, because it's not. So learn how to support it. And I think some of these people they got a touch of the doormat. They're not trying to be mean. They're not trying to be nasty. They just got a touch of the doormat where they believe in being nice above being good. And they do not consider the path to like righteousness or something being courageous. And I think this is they maybe put them in a situation where they have to be ferocious in a way towards like positive ends. And it might take them a while or a second to be able to do that. So, that's what I have for you. If that resonates, please like, comment, and subscribe to my channel. Bye, guys.